Hello everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, and you're with Simon today, and we're going to be doing a full moon in Aquarius video, and this is for the 15th of August 2019. So firstly, I hope that everybody is doing okay at the moment. I know that recently there's been some events in the collective sphere in the States that has, of course, caused a lot of emotional trauma to come to the surface. And so, as much as the world in and of itself is very intense at this stage, I hope that on some level there's a level of okayness in your life at the moment. So, I thought this would be a good opportunity to, get back into the rhythm of talking about astrology, talking about how to process our reality at this stage, and I suppose just sharing Raising Vibrations as perspective on the current energies at the moment. So, for us personally, for those of you that follow us and are interested in the work that we do, we've just taken a breather at the moment. Haven't been online for a while and creating any content. I think it was necessary to do that because with everything in life, I think if you are very focused and, deeply intimate with the process and you love what you do in that way and, you're doing it for a long period of time, there is a point in which there needs to be an Aquarius experience, which is to kind of just break free from it a little bit, detach, and do other things that are not necessarily just about the thing that you love to do. So, just a bit of a vacation and taking some time out. And what was really cool about it is that there were many experiences I had for myself personally that brought some new insights. So I think this is definitely how I'm going to kind of take the attitude of this conversation today about, helping us, work with Aquarius energy in our lives, what it means for us in terms of this current full moon, and I suppose on some level just talk about some other deeper dynamics that are taking place for us. Okay, so let me get the charts available for ourselves. Oops, there. And I got the camera up today, so feeling the need to just, say hello to everybody and just connect with you all. So this is a chart of the full moon, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to start off by speaking about that is not related to this chart specifically. And that is, of course, Mercury is, it's moving direct, and Mercury will be at the same position where it was going to be turning retrograde. So Mercury's kind of moved up till the 4th, 5th of Leo. So we're at a point now within our story where whatever energy that is taking place for us on the full moon, there's messages and information that will be reintegrated into your life experience that will be about the events with the solar eclipse that was taking place in Cancer. So on the 2nd of July, we went through a solar eclipse in Cancer, of course, and Mercury was, if I'm not mistaken, probably 5-6 degrees of Leo. So it's back there again, and I do definitely believe that a lot of the insights and a lot of the experiences that emerged for us during that solar eclipse Cancer energy will now kind of be set in motion. And the reason why I feel like this is an important cycle to look at, firstly, is because also all of this is about how cycles are interacting with other cycles. So the last time that Mercury was in Leo at this point, Jupiter wasn't direct. So as we know, Jupiter's gone direct today, which is there, you can see it. It's now, it doesn't have the little R next to it. And of course, this is for the 15th of August. And so it's direct. And there we have Mercury there in Leo as well. So there's an interesting correlation between the structure of how we gather information and the freshness that is associated with what a planet symbolizes when it's completed a retrograde cycle. So just as with anything in life, when you've done some deep reflection and you've gone into a very introverted way of being, there's a kind of clearing out process that takes place with retrograde planets. So in something like this, for instance, where Mercury has had its retrograde motion, it's now moving back to the same place that it was on the solar eclipse on the 2nd of July. And now Jupiter has completed its retrograde cycle. We've got two planetary bodies that are going to be making a trine to each other, probably around about the 20th of August. And they're going to be bringing messages that are deeply, deeply related to not only the sun's passage in Leo, which of course is taking place here, but also the meaning of, or the deeper meaning, or the onset, let's put it to you that way, the onset of the solar eclipse that was taking place in Cancer. So there's a lot of details there that I'm kind of reflecting to you, and I'm just showing you my own processing of how I see these symbols. And so what does that mean? Well, to me, in terms of more pictures that I'll bring to the surface here, it reflects a kind of initiation of the values that we seem to now be working deeply on with Uranus and Taurus. Okay. And I've spent a great deal of time, like, just really, observing the world as it stands, like being very detached in my Aquarius nature, and observing the different points of views that people have on the same subject, as an example, looking at everybody's, how we are interacting with similar, with the world as it is today, and what we perceive to be wrong with it, and what do we think it is that needs to change, and everybody really getting deeply fixated and possessed by their own point of view. So I've just kind of been observing a lot of this at the moment, and seeing and trying to investigate, like, why do we feel this important need to believe that the truth that it is that we speak is the absolute? We may have an aspect of the truth that we're perceiving that through things like other people agreeing with us that are on the similar fractal to us, reinforcing to us that that's the truth, and we get a bit confident with that. The fact that maybe the experience of feeling emotionally unsafe in not knowing what could potentially be the issues or the necessity for what we're doing in the world at the moment, and experiencing these deep shifts, these internal shifts and changes. And so like I said, I've been observing around and just really seeing, what it is that sort of fuels our important need to understand or hold on to the truths that we have. And a big part of that, of course, has to do with the context of value, what it represents to us. So an example that I can give in this whole entire chart at the moment, and of course, the reason why I'm really speaking to you this way, in this manner, and not using astrological language and deep spiritual awakening words, but more along the lines of what it is that I sense the energy at the moment is really the creative impulses that are emerging into our collective consciousness, and then of course through that individually into us, and how that interfaces with us. So that's the kind of orientation or the sense of approach that I'm taking with the charts, and I just need to say that out there so that you can understand why it is that I might not necessarily be generically talking about astrology and the full moon in this way. And there was an experience where I was chatting to a younger person, and we were talking about the different political structures that are in place. Of course, you have left and right, and our human interaction with, or our human stance on these two polarities. And so what I mean by that is, it's like, well, if you're in a situation where you have a family, for instance, that's deeply benefiting from the current structure in which the world is established right now, and yet individually in yourself, you feel that whatever it is that you're interested in might not coincide with the structures in the world that we have at the moment that are more valuable. Like, for instance, if you're probably somebody that is more of a supporter of capitalism in some way, and might be more conservative in your sense of thought processes, and more linear and logical in your process, the likelihood of your ability to have a more comfortable life at this point in time is higher than, say, for instance, that was more fluid and had more Pisces energy in yourself, was deeply artistic, right? And and so it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the entire truth of it, but it's a very large sort of scale of or spectrum of what it means to really exist in this world, and how the structures of our society are established, and how we orientate ourselves towards these platforms. And so the point was that in this case, if somebody was more likely to uh, be supported by leaning towards political structures, as an example, that upheld these types of views and it supported the family dynamic, then the likelihood of you choosing that would be more over your own towards governmental structures that were more in a sense for labor. Okay. And if and so this came down to a very, very interesting thing about the nature of survival. Now, this is a Uranus and Taurus dynamic. Okay. And you can see here that I've pointed out, or over there, I've pointed out Uranus and Taurus. I've pointed out the Sun Leo dynamic, and I've also pointed out the Jupiter. And so what I'm speaking to specifically in this conversation is, here we have Jupiter in Sagittarius, it's its own house, and we also have Saturn in Capricorn, which is its own sign. And this is really interesting, that before the conjunction that will take place between these two planets in Aquarius, they will actually move through their own signs. Okay, so Jupiter will move through Sagittarius and then move into Capricorn, and eventually, travel with Saturn into Aquarius. And it's significant because it means that we're currently at the moment really reorganizing the context of truth that it is that we feel we wish to solidify or structure, like put into our lives. Like Saturn wants to condense things, it wants to make things solid and lay out a path and say this is the most linear and logical way to do things, and this is how we need to establish structure so that we can exist, right, in a way that's on some level got order to it. And so Jupiter is really pushing us to go like, well, what is it that we need in our lives, the point of view that we have, or the faith that we have, or the vision we have, and how do we then crystallize that into something that actually becomes our conviction? So we're kind of working at the moment with a kind of collapsing structural society that has been deeply embedded in the over extension, or the overdeveloped, or the more I would even say to the point where it's become too excessive. So as in the world that we live in today, there is a lot of excess in the way that we establish things. And of course, a lot of this has to do with the psychological state of fear, which I think in our human race and the way that we are is something that we are not. I don't think we've been living in this in a state outside of that frequency for a long period of time. So of course, the kind of the fabric of what we've structured in our lives, and the nature of our truths and our values, and what was necessary, that's a big keyword here, what is necessary for our existence up until this point in time, has been rooted in these more deeper, lower frequencies of survival, and we've been pushed onto the edge. I mean, you only have to think about the fact that in 1940s and early 30s, and even before that, and look, 1965 and 1964, all of this over here, and even let's just go to 1993, there has been a lot of wars that have, shown us that as a sort of global structure, things are very unstable, and life is on some level, it's not even meaningful to those. Like, we live in the Western world over here, and yeah, sure enough, we've got a lot of things that are deeply complex and by no means in any way whatsoever okay. But on some level, the capacity to think about your life longer than, say, for instance, 30 years is pretty much something that most of us can feel comfortable in existing in. And I think that this is something that's really important to understand about the context of our own psychological disposition towards the way that we perceive reality, and the things that we assume or think that need to change as we are existing in a world that is so deeply entrenched in such radical transformation, right? So at the moment, the kind of sensitivity is, well, what truth do we have? Like, what is the vision that we hold for ourselves, and what seems to be natural? Like, these are all Jupiter and Sagittarius themes. And on some level, what does that mean for you personally? You know, like, what is your vision of the world, and how have you done things in your life that have opened your senses up to exploring more things, so that your capacity to observe what it is and make sense of what you're actually taking in your life, in a sense, is got value to it, and that you can contribute to deeper thinking patterns. So let me give you an example again, what I mean by this, right? So here you have this Uranus and Taurus symbolism, and it's been squaring, at the time of this full moon, it's squaring Mercury, right? So there's obviously some tension around this Mercury energy that is now coming out of its retrograde pattern and moving towards making a trine with Jupiter, which is, again, as I remind you, also coming out of its retrograde cycle. And on the time of this recording, Venus and Mars are also going to be, they've probably finished their square to Uranus. And the Sun at some point had also squared Uranus. So there was a tremendous amount of energy from around about the 6th of August up until the 15th of August, where a lot of the Mars, Venus, Sun dynamics were squaring Uranus, which again points to a deeper underlying psychological state of awareness that for most of us, we don't necessarily always, play around in, because it's our subconscious and it's the things that we don't understand that we repress to that place. And so within that basement, we're holding a lot of our unprocessed experiences. Okay. And this is one of the things that I think our existence is for, in terms of the physical body being a conduit for processing unresolved emotional dynamics. So here you have all these squares taking place, and then eventually on this full moon, you're going to see that Mars, Venus, and the Sun would have already made trines to Jupiter. Okay, so we're going through a period where we're deeply challenged by the values that we have in our field of vision, or our truth, and that the Jupiter on this trine over here, the trine making to Venus and Mars and the Sun, the trine is like bringing to us experiences and insights that are going to then become new ways of orientating ourselves in the world. And the connection to the little rant that I went on for the last 5 minutes about opening yourself up to deeper layers of reality is essential, because it means that you're allowing yourself more competence, and you're improving your complacency in the world around what it is that you perceive things to be, and how much have you investigated into things, that you can truly say for yourself at a very certain level that the vision that you have, or the view that you have, is rooted in discernment, objectivity, and on some level the capacity to see the experience in a way that is not blinded by your own perception of truth, because of your insecurity that can be relinked with what that truth may hold for you. And this is a very triggering and deeply confronting statement that I'm saying, but necessary, because if you can, in some sense, while having a conversation, or sharing your perspective, hold within your own state of awareness that there's something that you could be blinded by in your own view that could be preventing you from seeing something deeper, because of the natural human capacity psychologically to not really be able to conceptualize 360 degrees of everything. And of course, our emotional relatability to things is also deeply important in how we are able to empathize with people, of course. And there's the Neptune sitting at 17 degrees Pisces, making a trine to the North Node in Cancer at 17 degrees. So, like, if you think about the recent shootings that just took place in the States again, these are always, in every sense of the word, no matter what, deeply, deeply traumatizing experiences, because on so many different layers and so many different levels, there are memories of prior experiences that have taken place in different parts of the States, for instance. There are memories for people that have had those experiences happen to them at a different part of, in their own life. It brings up the the necessity for human beings to get together to try and figure out what it is that is really underneath this process. But it also at the same time reveals to us the complexity of such dynamics that are held within our emotional and psychological nature. Like, for instance, one of the comments that was made was that video games was to be blamed for it. And I know that on some level, this is a narrative that's always been suggested through other dynamics. And, you know, the thing is, though, is that on one level, you can perceive that person's or those people's points of views pushing that narrative, because that is something that can place the emotional pain into in order for us to objectify and then kind of process through. Now, is that true or not is a different story, you know? And I'm sure that a lot of pictures, I saw a brilliant meme where somebody had posted, video games are responsible, video games are responsible for these types of things. And then there was the picture where the person was playing video games and he was kind of like just stroking his cat subtly over there. And that's what I mean about the nature of these energies, with Jupiter at 14 degrees Sagittarius squaring Neptune at 17 degrees Pisces. It's very easy for us to get lost in the storyline in order for us to kind of not necessarily, it's primarily because we don't actually know how to process it. Like, it's too complex and too deep for us to really try and understand. So we have to, on some level, try to make sense of it, and the capacity for making sense of it is directly relative to our ability to understand it. So this is where I encourage the kind of Jupiter and Sagittarius process of moving forward in your life and exploring things at deeper levels and coming to understand deeper learning processes within yourself. So any information that comes through to you, like, really ask yourself the question, what is the purpose of this information? Why is it here? What is it serving? Is there an agenda? And in a sense, kind of really bringing a deep learning process, like going into the deeper layers. And doing that with everything that you enjoy, like really getting passionate about whatever it is that you like. Like, these are deeply Leo qualities, is the capacity to breathe life into something, to breathe fire into something, and I think that with the Mars, Jupiter trine, the Venus trine, the Sun trine, it's not necessarily what the energy is suggesting to us in terms of, what's right for us right now, but these energies really point to how we can get committed to something that we deeply believe in. And that's another thing about this process, coming back to the idea of conviction, is that, well, the conviction itself is how we actually crystallize and sort of like lay the foundation for our truth. And there's a lot of truths out there that we hold about ourselves that are rooted in the past, that no longer hold the capacity for deeper layers of empowerment for us. And so this is also a time at the moment in which we've got to really kind of get into where we feel that these truths are holding us back, and how we may be in fear of these truths, or these perceptions, or these philosophies, or these I would say perceptions, how these perceptions prevent us from fully experiencing life because of maybe views that we have on things that are rooted in the old, as an example. And I'm sure that on some level, many of you feel that kind of way that you look at reality, and you tell yourself a story as an example, and that story kind of prevents you from really jumping out and doing the thing you love, because there's a part of it that you may not understand. Like the moment in front of you is deeply uncertain. The territory is uncertain. So how do you make that leap of faith that allows you to jump into the unknown and experience the thing that you want? And well, that's a thing that I think comes along with this type of Jupiter energy as well. It's like the capacity to expand beyond and really not necessarily take a risk in a negative way by selling your house, for instance, and putting all the money on the blackjack, but just believing in yourself a little bit more, giving yourself more space and freedom to take charge of your life and do the thing you want to do, as an example, and really bring to yourself the ability to live a life where, and again, this is not saying that you don't, and this I'm saying that if there are things that you wish you want to do with your life, now is the time to give yourself that prep talk, so that you can allow those experiences to be fully like held within you, so you can have those moments, you can have those opportunities. And I think this is a period in human existence where the shift from the story that it means to be human and what we consider the right thing to do, or traditions and stuff like that, this is a time where they're getting very challenged. And I think a lot of Pluto and Libras particularly, I know that many of you sort of struggle with this polarity issue of freedom and autonomy, and then at the same time still wanting to kind of be in a partnership, and then stuck within the old conditioning patterns and the new sense of self-discovery that is wanting to be held. So this is really the time to step out of that and break out of that, and really take charge of the things that you're passionate about. And a lot of where this is going to come from is, again, the energy at the moment that suggests an important, like, what is the value that you have within yourself? What do you value? What things are no longer valuable for you anymore, that don't give you meaning and purpose and creativity? And what are the things that do, so that you can feel fire in your life? You can feel the burst of the joy and the heart really, really being open in that sense. So that's another kind of way of how these energies, to me, can be really, really presenting themselves in different ways in that sense. There was one thing that I just wanted to come back to that I didn't fully complete, and that was the story of where the person would, for instance, feel comfortable choosing conservative types of political structures while still feeling very sort of liberal in their own process. And it was interesting because it came down to survival and necessity. And it was like, even though we could feel that we would care and have a heart openness in ways of sharing and inclusion and stuff, when we were deeply threatened by something being taken away, that more primitive parts of ourselves would kick in, and we would be more prone to choosing our own autonomy than we would in terms of like the savior of other people. And again, that's not necessarily an entire truth. It is an observation that probably expands at about 70%. A lot of us can feel the opposite to that. But when situations and circumstances actually do come around, and we are threatened at a very deep Scorpio level, our safety is taken away. It's very interesting to see how our views change when we're not under stress. And that was the kind of observation there. And a lot of it has to do with views and perceptions and feelings we have about things outside stress, and then how we are when we are stressed, or when the body is under stress. And it was an interesting observation to see how we could radically shift away from the ideals that we have, because there is more pressure on something that's very primitive within ourselves. So and that comes down to a lot of things about looking at your point of view and asking yourself, is this something that I hold while the circumstances of my life are currently at this stage supportive and fluid and flowing? But then when things kind of really, really get intense for us, like, who are we at that place as well? So interesting to contemplate. Okay. All right, peeps. I feel like I've shared, a fair amount of information in terms of this. There's a part of me that also knows that if you were really looking for something very focused and sort of straight to the point over there, I don't think that was something you probably got. Although there was a lot of things that I've been sort of processing over the last 3 weeks that I knew that I wanted to talk about in this new moon, or full moon, pardon me. And in a sense, I feel like I've covered them in ways that are unique to my own kind of thinking process. So I hope that you got some value out of this in some way. The other thing that I wanted to just talk about quickly, I wrote some notes down over here, and that was just to know that Mars and Venus, if you have a look over here, they're actually in a closing phase cycle, right? Mars Venus is in a closing phase, which suggests that the values and the things that you consider to be essential in your life, and the things that you, like I said, that you feel are important for you, that cycle is coming to a close. And when Mars and Venus actually make a new phase conjunction, which I suspect will be probably in 2 weeks' time, or a little bit less. I haven't actually checked, to be honest, but if somebody feels that they want to go and investigate that and put it into the comments, or I'll go do that, that energy will give us a taste of an entirely new beginning. And that's what this whole entire conversation was about for me. It was like the breaking out, the moon in Aquarius, like the breaking out and the liberation from previous structures that hold us in place, and now forming into new things, like wanting to impregnate your life with ideas and perspectives that are fresh and new, that have a different point of view, and that in a sense are related to what is correct for you right now in your life. And so that's where I see this energy also taking us at the moment. Okay. Wonderful. All right, peeps, have a fantastic day. And I hope that the week is good for you, and I'll speak to you in another video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.